Let's take a look at some mean, median, and mode. If you look at my tally chart here, I have two check marks from 0 to 2, so I'm going to draw a bar in my graph that's too tall. From 2.1 to 4, I have 3 check marks, so I'm going to draw a bar that's 3 tall. Same thing for 4.1 to 6. There's my bar that's 3 tall. And from 6.1 to 8, I have 2 checks, which is going to give me a bar 2 tall. These bars seem to make the shape of a bell curve. And when we're talking about mean, median, and mode, what we're talking about is this yellow area in the middle of a bell curve. That middle area we're going to refer to as the central tendency. And mean, median, and mode and range are ways to measure this central tendency. So let's talk about how to figure each one out. To get mean, you take your data numbers and you add them all up, and then you divide by how many there are. To calculate median, you put the numbers in order from small to large and you find the middle number. And to calculate mode, you just look and see which number occurs the most. Range is the largest minus the smallest. So let's individually look at these things now. Here's a set of data. So let's figure out the range. When I look at this data, the largest number I have is 7, and the smallest number I have is 0. So to calculate range, I take the largest and I minus the smallest. That gives me 7. Now that's important because what that tells me is my bell curve is 0 on the low end and 7 on the high end. So if we think about it, what's going to be in the center? Well, right in the middle then we should have 3.5. So range is an important value because it kind of lets us determine what our mean, median, and mode should be. So let's take a look at mean now. I add up all the numbers, and then I count how many there are. So there's 11 numbers, and they add to 39. So I take 39 and I divide it by 11, and it gives me 3.5. And that makes perfect sense to me since the range that we calculated between 0 and 7, the middle was 3.5. Let's take a look at median with the same data numbers. So I order them from 0 all the way up to the largest, which is 7. Now, because my range and my mean were around 3.5, my median really should be around that number as well. It can't be anything crazy like 23 or 35 because that's even outside my range. Here's a good way to group the numbers together to find the middle one. Pair the biggest with the smallest and keep doing that until you end up with the number in the center. And in this case, it's 4. To me, that's good news because, again, when we calculated the range, we got 3.5. So let's take a look at our bell curve again. Here's 0, here's 7, and again, the center here is 3.5. So our range was from 0 to 7, and the middle of that range is 3.5. So a median of 4 makes sense because it's really close to 3.5. What are some special circumstances for median? Well, we were lucky when we figured it out before because we had an odd number of data numbers. If you end up with an even number of data values, you're going to end up with 2 numbers in the center. And when you end up with 2 numbers in the center, what you have to do is find the middle of those 2 numbers. Sometimes it's really easy to see. Like in this case, the 2 numbers that are going to end up in the middle are 3 and 4. So we know the middle of 3 and 4 is 3.5. But if your numbers are weird, large, or have decimals, the best way to do it is add them together and then divide by 2. And we get that 3.5 value. Some kids readily see that between 3 and 4 is 3.5. Let's take a look at mode now. So back to our familiar set of data numbers. And in this situation, I have 3 2s, I have 2 6s, and I have 2 4s. 3 2s occurs most often, therefore 2 is the mode. So mode is a very simple thing. Which number occurs most often? There are some special circumstances for mode. Take this data for example. Each number occurs once, so no number repeats, therefore there is no mode. Take a look at this other example. In this case, we have 2 1s and 2 2s. Because they both occur the same amount, there are two modes.